The room froze when Andrei said he was filing for divorce on live television. No warning, no soft landing. One sentence and a marriage collapsed in front of cameras while Elizabeth spiraled off stage in panic. This was the second everything crossed a line and there was no walking back. Faces went blank, voices stalled, even the host hesitated. What followed was not drama for ratings. It felt personal and exposed in a way reality TV rarely admits. And then the ripple hit another couple and Yara broke in full view, shaking through fears she had kept quiet for months. This tell-all stopped playing referee and started pulling pins. Stay with this because the next reaction shifts blame, power, and sympathy in ways no one expected. So why now? Who gains control from a moment like this? And who walked in thinking they were safe and left shattered? By the time everyone sat down on that tell-all stage, the tension didn't arrive suddenly, it had been warming up for weeks. If you watched the last few episodes closely, the warning signs were everywhere. Half-finished conversations, apologies that sounded more like negotiations, smiles that lasted just long enough for the cameras and vanished the second the lights shifted. This wasn't a reunion, it was a pressure test. On the surface, things still looked familiar. Same couches, same awkward small talk, same nervous laughs as cast members hugged like coworkers who overshared once and never forgot it. There were jokes about travel, jokes about outfits, jokes about how crazy this season has been. But underneath all of that was something off. People weren't joking to relax, they were joking to stall. You could feel it in the way certain couples sat just a little farther apart than usual. In the way eye contact became optional. In the way some people spoke too fast, while others barely spoke at all. This tell-all felt less like a recap and more like a courtroom waiting room, everyone pretending they weren't here to hear a verdict. What made it different was timing. Most tell-alls are about reflection. This one felt like it was about unfinished business. Several relationships hadn't cooled down yet. Fights were still fresh. Trust hadn't been repaired. And instead of processing things privately, everyone was being asked to do it under studio lights, with an audience waiting for a moment to clip and replay. There was also an unspoken shift in power. In past reunions, chaos usually came from emotional outbursts. This time, the most dangerous people were the calm ones, the ones sitting back, arms crossed, listening more than talking. The ones who looked like they had already decided how the night was going to go. Even the host seemed to sense it. The usual playful energy was there, but the questions came faster, sharper, with less cushioning in between. Topics that might have been saved for later were brought up early. Personal lines were crossed without the usual warm-up. It felt intentional, like the show wasn't just revisiting the season, it was testing how much pressure these couples could survive. And while some cast members clearly arrived armored up, others walked in believing the worst was already behind them. You could see relief on a few faces, like they thought this was the victory lap. That the hard conversations had already happened. That whatever damage existed was manageable. That imbalance mattered. Because when one person shows up ready to detonate and another shows up ready to move on, the fallout is never fair. So before the first bomb dropped, before anyone raised their voice or left the stage, the atmosphere had already been set. Someone was planning damage, someone else didn't see it coming. And by the end of the night, the difference between those two mindsets would decide who walked out composed and who walked out changed. Andrei didn't raise his voice. That's what made it land harder. When the question turned toward the state of his marriage, he didn't hesitate, didn't hedge, didn't soften the edges. He said he was filing for divorce, and he said it like someone reading a grocery list. No build-up, no warning. Just a statement dropped into the room and left to detonate on its own. That kind of timing is power. Announcing something that final, that personal, in a public space strips the other person of choice. Elizabeth didn't get a moment to prepare, to process, or to decide how she wanted the world to see her reaction. The cameras decided that for her. And when shock hits that fast, the body reacts before the mind can catch up. You could see it happen in real time. Elizabeth froze, then unraveled, her breathing changed. Her words stopped making sense. Within seconds, she was off stage, overwhelmed by a panic response she clearly hadn't planned on sharing with millions of people. That reaction wasn't weakness. It was a nervous system crashing under surprise and exposure at the same time. Psychologically, surprise disclosures cut deeper than loud fights because they remove agency. In an argument, both sides are braced for impact. In a blindside, one person is still standing in yesterday while the other has already moved into tomorrow. The silence that follows is often the most terrifying part. No explanation, no reassurance, just the awareness that something irreversible has already been set in motion. Back on stage, Andrei stayed seated, calm, composed, almost untouched by the chaos he had triggered. And that contrast is what split viewers instantly. For some, his delivery looked like honesty. They argued that dragging out the truth would have been worse, that if the marriage was over, saying it plainly was the most respectful option. No theatrics, no fake hope, but for others, the method crossed a line, not because of what he said, but where and how he said it. Public timing turned a private decision into a spectacle. Calm delivery became pressure rather than maturity. His stillness, paired with Elizabeth's collapse, made it feel less like transparency and more like control. What made the moment so destabilizing was the imbalance. One person emotionally regulated, the other in full fight or flight. When that happens on a stage like this, the audience doesn't just watch the event, they judge the behavior. Every pause, every glance, every choice not to follow her off stage became part of the narrative. Off stage, Elizabeth's panic intensified. Away from the cameras but still surrounded by production, she struggled to ground herself. Meanwhile, the show kept moving. Questions shifted, conversations continued, and that's where the silence after shock became truly frightening. Life didn't pause to match her reality. Back on stage, Andrei remained in control of the story simply by not reacting. Control doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks like sitting still while someone else breaks. And that's the open question this moment leaves behind. Was this honesty, delivered in the cleanest way possible, or was it strategy, timed for maximum leverage under the brightest lights? And more importantly, was this decision made long before the cameras rolled, or did the stage itself become the trigger? Yara did not fall apart because of one sentence. That moment only gave a voice to something living quietly in her for a long time. When the idea of divorce entered the room, even though it was not aimed at her, her face changed first. Then her posture, then her voice. Logic stepped aside and emotion took over. This breakdown was brewing. You could feel it in earlier episodes, the constant adjustments, moving countries, raising a child mostly alone, smiling through doubts. When trust feels thin, insecurity speaks louder. And once it starts talking, it does not wait for permission. What cracked Yara open was the suggestion that love can end without warning. For someone already carrying fear of replacement, that idea hits like confirmation. Her words were not about Jovi leaving, they were about being enough if he stayed. Conditional self-worth shows up like that. Love feels safe only when reinforced. Silence becomes a threat, distance feels personal. Jovi tried to defend himself, he talked about commitment, he mentioned history, he pointed to effort. But his defense struggled to land because reassurance works only when it matches the fear. Yara was not asking for facts. She was asking for emotional presence. When answers stay practical, while fear stays emotional, both sides miss each other. There is also the emotional labor imbalance sitting underneath this. Yara carries the mental weight of stability. Jovi often carries optimism. Neither is wrong. But when one partner holds the worry and the other holds the faith, tension builds. Faith without emotional backup feels dismissive. Worry without validation feels lonely. And this is where the room began to change, because what looked like another argument turned into something quieter and heavier. Emotion overtook logic. The volume dropped, the energy shifted. People stopped interrupting. Yara was not performing. She was unraveling in real time. And once vulnerability like that enters a space, chaos pauses. No one wants to be the person who escalates after that. Viewers reacted fast. Some felt protective of Yara. They saw a woman asking for reassurance and not receiving it in the way she needed. Others felt sympathy for Jovi. They saw a partner being blamed for fears he did not create. Both reactions tell the same truth. This was not about right or wrong. It was about timing and emotional alignment. So here is the real reflection. Where do you draw your boundary when reassurance feels delayed? How long do you wait before fear becomes resentment? And when does explaining turn into defending? Because reassurance can arrive too late. Once insecurity turns into a public breakdown, damage already spreads. Even if the relationship survives, the memory stays. The moment becomes a reference point. Every future silence echoes back to this. And right as the room went silent, one question hung in the air: whether this pain had already crossed a line nobody noticed yet. The open loop here matters. Was the damage done long before this tell-all moment? Or did saying it out loud make it real in a way reassurance cannot undo? And if love needs constant proof to feel safe, what happens when life gets quiet again? Because the next shift did not come with shouting. It came with stillness. And someone watching realized silence can hurt more than any fight. The shift between Lauren and Elizabeth felt quieter than the others, but quieter does not mean softer. This fallout ran on trust, and trust moves fast when cameras sit in the room. What started as side comments turned into social currency. Who knew what, who told who, and who stayed quiet long enough to look guilty. Elizabeth walked into this tell all already bruised. That matters. When someone feels exposed, every whisper sounds louder. Lauren's frustration came out sharp, and on a group stage, sharp words stick. The accusation was not only about secrets, it was about loyalty, about whether friendship still counts when the audience grows. Betrayal from friends cuts deeper than romantic conflict because there is no script for it. Couples fight. Friends are supposed to be safe. When that safety cracks in public, the damage spreads outward. Other relationships feel it. Group dynamics shift. People start choosing sides without saying so. Gaslighting accusations landed heavy because they were spoken in front of witnesses. On a couch like that, intent stops mattering. Perception takes over. Once someone says they feel manipulated, the room listens for proof. Every denial sounds defensive. Every explanation sounds rehearsed. And right here is where viewers leaned forward, because the tone changed from messy to dangerous. Lauren pushed back, not with cruelty, but with certainty. She believed her version. Elizabeth looked stunned, caught between defending herself and realizing control of the story was slipping. This is how misunderstandings explode on television. Nuance dies fast. Reaction becomes evidence. Silence becomes admission. Some viewers felt Lauren crossed a line. Others felt Elizabeth blurred boundaries first. Both reactions live in the same space. Cameras compress time. Conversations happen out of order. Confessions feel bigger than they are. And once a moment airs, perception becomes reality whether anyone agrees or not. There is also strategy hiding here. When trust collapses publicly, someone always benefits. Attention shifts, sympathy moves, heat redirects. Sometimes staying quiet becomes the smartest move, because words add fuel. Other times silence looks like guilt. Choosing wrong carries a cost either way. Elizabeth's earlier breakdown changed how this landed. Vulnerability can protect, but it can also weaken. Lauren's challenge felt harsher because Elizabeth already looked fragile. Fair or not, context shapes judgment. The audience does not separate moments, they stack them. And that stacking effect is what made this feel bigger than one argument, because consequences were already forming off camera. Friendships on the show do not exist in private. They live inside confessionals, group chats, and fan reactions. Once trust turns transactional, everyone recalculates. Who to tell, who to avoid, who to watch. The open loops here linger. Who gains when friendships fracture on screen? Who chooses silence to survive the fallout? And who thinks telling the truth is still worth the cost when trust has already cracked? Natalie's segment did not explode. It unsettled. While others clashed in real time, her story moved sideways, slower, almost detached from the noise. New look, new tone, new confidence. On paper, reinvention reads as growth. On screen, this felt closer to control. When life feels unstable, changing the surface offers quick relief. You choose the lighting, you choose the angle, you choose the applause. What made fans uneasy was not the makeover itself. People change all the time. The unease came from what replaced stability. Validation stepped in. Compliments became proof. Attention turned into oxygen. Each nod from the room landed heavier than any hard conversation she avoided. Reinvention became a shield. It protected her from sitting with unresolved hurt. There is a difference between healing and avoiding. Healing stays uncomfortable for a while. Avoiding feels good fast. Natalie leaned into the fast relief. Smiles sharpened. Posture lifted. Words sounded practiced. Confidence looked polished, yet brittle. When confidence relies on reaction, silence turns dangerous. And right around here, the audience stopped watching for entertainment and started watching for impact. Fans did not cheer the way they usually do for glow-ups. The response stayed muted. People sensed the tension between the image and the need underneath. When external change chases internal safety, the chase never ends. Praise works like a short hit. It lifts, then it fades. Then you need more. What makes this arc heavier is the absence of a clear antagonist. No one attacked her. No one forced this shift. That leaves nowhere to point the discomfort. It sits with the viewer. Watching someone rebuild on shaky ground brings concern, not joy. The room felt that. The energy dipped instead of spiking. From a psychology lens, control often shows up after rejection. When love feels unpredictable, self-direction feels safer. Natalie took the wheel. Style, speech, presentation, All curated. The problem with control as comfort is fragility. One bad reaction shakes the whole structure. Stability comes from internal safety. Control depends on constant upkeep. And as the applause softened, something else surfaced, a quiet worry no one voiced out loud. Reality TV complicates this further. The line between documenting pain and amplifying it blurs fast. Cameras reward extremes. Subtle healing does not trend. Reinvention plays well on screen, so the system encourages it. That raises an ethical tension. Are we witnessing growth or nudging someone deeper into performance? Natalie's moments felt prolonged, not resolved. No confrontation, no closure. The story kept stretching forward without release. That leaves viewers holding the weight. Unease lingers because the road ahead looks familiar. More attention, more polishing, more distance from the hard work off camera. Fans sense patterns. They react when praise becomes currency. They pull back when authenticity feels filtered. Entertainment shifts into concern. That shift matters. When audiences stop laughing and start worrying, the show crosses into another space. And this is the point where silence spoke louder than any argument earlier in the night. The open loops here refuse to close. Where does this road lead when affirmation slows? What happens when the room stops clapping? Control holds until it does not. External change buys time, not peace. If safety stays outside, exhaustion follows. Natalie's arc ended without fireworks, and that was the warning. No villain, no win, only motion. And motion without direction wears people down. The tell-all moved on, yet the unease stayed, because some stories do not end with a scene cut. They follow the person home. And when cameras roll again, the question will not be about how she looks. It will be about what remains once the noise fades, and whether the quiet brings relief or another reinvention waiting to happen. This tell-all did not feel like the usual drama cycle. It felt historic, like a line had been crossed and everyone could sense it, even through the screen. Emotions were raw, unpredictable, and relentless. Each revelation landed with weight, and each silence afterward felt louder than any shout. Fans watched because they wanted the shock, but they stayed because something deeper was unfolding. Something human, messy, and impossible to ignore. You could feel the ripple effect in every glance, every carefully chosen word, every pause that wasn't really a pause. The damage from this episode does not stop when the credits roll. Public humiliation, betrayal, and emotional vulnerability have consequences that linger far beyond the set. Elizabeth's quiet panic offstage, Yara's breakdown in response to unspoken insecurities, Natalie's slow-motion reinvention, all of it adds layers that fans feel. Viewers stay glued because they are not just watching conflict, they are watching the human cost, the aftershocks of trust breaking and control shifting. Each scene reminded us that reality TV is not merely entertainment. It's a high-stakes mirror of relationships under extreme pressure, and no one walks away unchanged. Fans debated, commented, and argued because every choice, every pause, every response felt like a lesson or a warning. Who benefits from timing a revelation? Who suffers silently while the cameras catch everything? How much of what we saw was calculated, and how much was instinctive? These questions kept people invested. This was not about picking sides. It was about watching consequences unfold in real time. Some moments were shocking, some heartbreaking, and some frustratingly ambiguous. That mix created an unrelenting tension. The tell-all also highlighted unfinished emotional business. Not every relationship has closure. Not every betrayal is addressed fully. There are threads that carry forward, conversations that remain unspoken, and feelings that linger in the spaces between words. Yara's trust, Elizabeth's humiliation, Natalie's fragile control, they are all arcs that will demand attention in episodes to come. Fans are left anticipating, theorizing, and emotionally engaging because the story refuses to tie itself neatly. What makes this episode stick is the combination of spectacle and authenticity. The high drama shocks you, but the human reactions keep you watching long after. The tension does not resolve, the impact does not fade. Relationships are entering unknown territory, and the audience senses that the next chapter will be equally, if not more, unpredictable. And when the cameras roll next, every word, glance, and decision will carry echoes from this night. One secret left unspoken could change everything, one reassurance could fail, and one new confrontation might finally bring someone to a breaking point. The story is far from over, and you will want to see exactly who survives the fallout.